Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. So, got another great review collaboration for you guys today. So, I'm here with Caitlin. She goes by Caitlin Bloody Mary online on YouTube, and she has a really great YouTube channel. You should definitely check out her YouTube channel. She has a lot of really good content, some really like insightful reviews of films and mostly horror films, and I've seen some of her other stuff. I really liked the review you did of The Irishman. I really liked that when you talked about that
Oh,
film.
thank you. Yes, I'm a
Um,
huge Scorsese fan. Yeah.
yeah. Me and a friend, we just did a review of our favorite, well, a list of our favorite films from 2019. Both of us had The Irishman at number one, and we both talked a lot about it. So,
Oh, excellent. I haven't seen that one yet. I've seen it
yeah.
probably like you upload a lot more than I do. You're much better at an upload schedule than me.
It's hard. Don't feel bad. But the stuff you put out is really good. So
Thank
I would
you.
feel good about that. The quality is high. And
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
when the quality is high, people want more.
I do my best.
Cool. Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and like what made you want to start your channel and talk about film and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Caitlin, as the lovely Ibrahim has introduced me as. YouTube channel is Caitlin Bloody Mary. I guess my thing with film is, and I feel like this is a story that is familiar to a lot of people around my age, is that it was the mid to late 90s at a sleepover party and someone put on Scream. And it was instantaneous. There's something about that opening scene in Scream that I feel just compelled a lot of people into a fascination of the horror genre. And when I became obsessed with horror, my mum and dad were like, well, listen, if you're going to get into horror, you're going to have to watch some old horror and really understand the historical relevance of what makes Scream so brilliant. So I saw The Woman in Black, the original Woman in Black. I saw The Changeling. And straight away I was like, this is something that I became obsessed with. It was, every Saturday afternoon, I would sit down, watch a new horror, and my parents would come home and I'd be like, oh my God, I found something new that's amazing. And I started a horror film diary, which occasionally makes a cameo appearance in my videos when I was about 12. And I suppose it was 2 years ago, I gave up drinking, had this huge lifestyle change, and was trying to find ways to fill my time. And I kind of thought back to how much enjoyment I got from watching horror and talking about horror and analysing it, and thought, well, I should share it with the wild world of the internet, and started my channel.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. I'd study film, that's my major at university, or college as you would probably call it. And I minor in journalism, so writing about film is something I really am passionate about, and I'm excited to talk about Train to Busan with you. I've always had a bit of a thing for the old zombie genre.
Yeah. Well, that's a really cool story. I haven't heard you talk about that before. That was really beautiful, actually. Touching. I mean, I'm a fellow film student. I went to UC Santa Barbara, studied film. My co-host Lucian, he's another film school guy, so we're all film school geek nerds, basically, right? So we'll probably get along. So one thing, I definitely, Scream was definitely a big deal we're probably around the same age, like late 80s, 90s kids. I'm wondering, did you remember watching Jurassic Park like young when you were a kid?
You know what? I did not enjoy it. I don't know if I was too young or if I'm probably not the biggest Spielberg fan.
Oh,
despite the fact that I love the shit out of, pardon me, love the.
Oh, it's okay. You can curse.
Jaws.
I don't mind.
Okay, cool.
I don't mind at all.
I mean, I'd put Jaws possibly in like my top 10 films. I think it's a brilliant film. But Jurassic Park didn't land for me. Like, it just never landed, and I've never really revisited it.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I brought that up because, like, would you consider that a horror film? Like, it has some really strong horror elements, I feel like. The more I think about that film, the more I feel like it's basically a horror film. It's just like a really successful, popular horror film.
I would say that there is a real crossover, and there's a real, with genres, there's such a blurring of lines sometimes that I think some films are very clear cut.
Yeah.
But other films, it really comes down to the way that the individual perceives elements of it. And, you know, that comes down to, as a fellow film person, you know, the whole like Roland Barthes kind of, everyone has the right to interpret the way that they want. So, you know, there's some infamous films that have been made as horror that are actually quite comedic. So despite the fact that the director has set out to make a horror film, he's actually making people laugh, and it's probably more horror comedy, even though it wasn't intended to be. And I think it's the same with Jaws. Like, Jaws to me is a horror film.
Oh,
like,
100%.
It is quite frightening in parts, but it also has elements of melodrama, family dynamics. It's got so much going on. And yeah, I think Jurassic Park would be that similar vein, where it's like an action horror, it's got melodrama, it's got comedy in there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I just bring that up because, like, I feel like I've heard people talk about Jurassic Park in a similar-ish way that people talk about Scream, where it kind of led them on a path where they found more horror-ish stuff, and that was the beginning of it. Because when I watched that as a kid, there were definitely some moments where I remember the moment where, like, the kid's trying to hide, but he can't get the thing closed, and, like, the raptor's coming at him, and my little 5-year-old self thought he was going to die. And that's a horror moment, but when I'm
as well.
Yeah, exactly. But like when I'm a 5-year-old kid, like I don't understand that's a horror genre trope being put onto me, and I'm reacting to that, right? And so it's kind of interesting. Like you said, it's interesting to see like how people interact with the medium, the thing itself. Some people see that as an action scene. Some people see it as a horror scene, and it could be different.
Absolutely. I think the action horror thing is one that is such a fine line. And I think from both sides of the equation, there can be a bit of a snobbery / reverse snobbery around what is horror. Both from like people that are like so into horror that it has to be like balls to the wall horror for them to classify it as a horror. And then there's the other side of the equation that, you know, don't classify horror as real film. And I think it's one of the reasons why I think it's one of the most fascinating genres of film, because there's
just think about people's reactions now to this concept of the elevated horror movie, right? There's a lot of people who
don't even get me started.
Right? And it's like, elevated horror? Have you been watching horror films? Or like what's the movie? I think it's Possession. And
made elevated horror, like elevated horror.
Yeah. But it's really just like, this is the elevated horror. This is what happens when you have people like, you know, Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta and these other people interacting with the genre, or Ari Aster, who are really artistic. But it's always existed in horror films, like
always. And I think you could say the same thing about just about every single genre. You could say an elevated rom-com is Romeo and Juliet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally,
you could say, you know, elevated comedy is, you know,
or like Die Hard is an elevated action film, right? And there's a whole bunch that are trash, but like Die Hard is the elevated version of action.
Like everything in life, there are good things and bad things. From every single genre of books to films to music, you know, you could say that, you know, Jesus and Mary Chain are elevated punk. Like, there's so many different ways of addressing, you know, art, even like elevated pop art and elevated modernism. And I think
totally. I think a lot of people.
I feel like we, as human beings, we've got this like inherent need to classify things, when in reality things are a lot more fluid in the shades of grey. For sure, they're a lot more fluid. Me and my friend, we were just talking about like a film, Parasite, right? That film goes in and out of genres very seamlessly.
right?
I mean,
It starts
I think
as
Parasite has elements of
yeah.
horror.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like once that film makes the turn after like the midpoint, it's a horror film.
Yeah,
And then the end is
yeah,
something
I
else. The end is like a melodrama, and there's this postscript where it's this beautiful moment, but it's totally a horror film. Like,
it's one of, I would put that in, like, not even a recent one, but I would put that in my top 10 films of all time. Like, I think
yeah.
it was just, it blew me away. Like, I thought it was one of the greatest films I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah,
you know, when
absolutely.
you're watching a film and you're like, am I really watching this? Is someone this magnificent at creating a story and film, and the acting and everything about it is just beautiful.
Yeah, those moments, I live for those moments for sure. And there's nothing like it, right? Like when you really feel something new and different and beautiful, and they're so rare. And yeah, that film, he did such a good job of like, because you know there are some films where they try to do that turn and it just doesn't work. But at every moment, the turn works. Like when it becomes the horror film, like that one shot of the guy coming up the stairs, that's fucking scary.
Right?
And it's so well shot. Yeah, it's so well shot.
And there's violence, like it's visceral violence at points. Yeah, no, it's I think that could be considered a horror film, and I think the only reason people won't consider that is because it is so good. You know, it's won multiple awards and accolades, and people are not ever, you know, Silence of the Lambs. People are like, well, it's not a horror film. I'm like, well, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, same here. Totally, it is.
Well, it's still a horror.
Or what they call those, it's a thriller.
Thriller. That's it, isn't it? They call it a thriller. I'm like, no, it's a thriller horror. It's like horror.
Yeah. It's this nice catch-all term to like kind of wash away the evil horror. Oh, horror is for the the weirdos, and it's like no, it is a legitimate genre that creates art. Yeah.
Beautiful art. 100%.
Totally.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Parasite's probably a good way to lead into talking about
another
Busan, because I think
again, Korea, like they're producing some amazing films in the last couple decades, and Bong Joon-ho, and
there's I've got a list of things I want to watch.
Yeah, same here. I just recently did a review with someone. I saw The Devil, which was a horror film.
I saw that review with Drawbats.
Yeah, with Drawbats.
Yeah, I went and subscribed to her channel. She's amazing. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, she's really, really cool.
I don't necessarily agree with her all the time, but I feel the way that she has of explaining her point of view is fantastic.
Yeah, totally. And she likes watching all kinds of stuff.
It was fantastic. So I tuned out towards the end because I didn't want to get too spoiled.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh,
definitely watch the film.
Watch this. I might stop.
Definitely watch the film.
Yeah, I will. I will.
So yeah, we're talking about Train to Busan. So this came out in 2016. So this is I feel like this is a like high concept horror premise, right? Zombies, a train. Okay. I don't know if you remember there was this hilarious movie called Snakes on a Plane.
Oh my god, I forgot that film existed.
Yeah. Crazy film. Yeah. So this is a well done version of something similar. A premise where we hear it, we're like, oh, that's crazy. Zombies on a train. One location, zombies, go, right? Sells you from the jump. And this movie, what's interesting too is like it's very apropos for the time we're in. Like this is an epidemic movie. They experience in this film, they experience some kind of virus disease, and it ravages Korea. We don't know if it gets out of Korea. It doesn't tell us that. But this film starts with they're in the countryside. This guy who's a farmer, he's stopped, and they have to like hose down his vehicle because they're trying to sterilize this epidemic from spreading. And he's mad and blah, blah, blah. And then he runs over a deer, and we see the deer get zombified and come back to life. And boom, that's
that's like the clue. Because I mean, it's mostly in zombie films or TV shows. It doesn't necessarily impact the animals and zombify the animals. So I haven't seen the sequel yet, but I feel like it would be a really interesting thing to bring into like a prequel or a sequel, is this element of the animals themselves becoming zombified.
Yeah, for sure. Because usually it's like human to human, but this is it's again, it's sort of like the era we're living in. This thing jumps to a human, right? And that's where the problem comes. So
Of course, it's that animal to human thing, which is amazingly, yeah, of course.
yeah,
That whole thing of it starts with an animal, it moves into a human. Yeah.
yeah, and again, it's so kind of brilliant because like we're they. I think Koreans are more aware of it, but now I think Americans in the world is now aware of like that because we're living on the frontier of where these farms are and they're encroaching on these other animals' land. We are now in contact with diseases that we should have never been in contact with, basically, and they have disastrous consequences.
They certainly do, as the world is witnessing in real time. Yeah.
Yeah. So this film, like, that's like kind of the prescript, right? It's like, oh, here's how the zombies get here, right? And again, it's a brilliant setup. So the film follows this guy, Seok Woo, I think is his name, and he's sort of.
I will apologize straight away if I get any of these Korean names wrong. It is surprisingly difficult to fall into another language's names. So I do apologize if I mispronounce anything throughout this. That's probably a good little acknowledgement that there's no intention to say anything wrong.
For sure. I wrote them down. I'm going to try, but like, it's easy because like I think of them, it's like there's the dad, there's the daughter, there's some of the people on the train that we'll get to. Yeah. But those are like basically the main characters.
Frequently, like it's not like it's a frequently, but I think that's part of how this film is done, is that it's very show don't tell.
Exactly, it is very show don't tell, and the filmmaking, as we're going to get to, it's very well done. Like this is not just some schlocky, silly zombies on a train. They really do some good work of creating a actual connection with the characters that a lot of films don't do.
Which obviously starts, sorry, I interrupted you. Obviously starts with the dad and relationship as the
So the dad, so they set up the dad. He's a hedge fund manager, and he has to make a big decision at the jump of the film about basically selling off a whole bunch of stocks based on some insider information. And he's worried about doing it because that's going to cause a panic, and he will be responsible for causing a panic. And if he were to do it. So finally, he then decides, okay, I'm going to do it. I have to do this thing. He brings in his like kind of underling, Kim, and he tells him, sell everything. We're going to do it. And Kim is like, oh, well, are you sure? This is going to cause a panic. It's going to cause a mass sell-off. And then Siwook, he has this interesting line. He says, do you work for the lemmings? Do you work for these other people who are going to be affected? Like sort of saying, like they don't matter. Those other people, they don't matter. We're just going to do this so we can make money. So just do it. And so again, it's setting him up as he's self-interested, he's selfish, he's doing things that he knows are wrong, but he's doing them anyway just because money, right? Because it's his job, it's his work. And so we're not really, I don't know if we're supposed to really like him at first, really. We were kind of like, this guy, not a great guy.
He's certainly not what we would normally expect as a classic hero.
Yes.
He kind of almost reminds me of, God, we're really going back to Spielberg-esque now, but almost kind of like in the Peter Pan Hook, that film Hook, where it's like the lead hero has a real journey to undertake, where he starts off, it's money, 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 poor relationship with child, money. Recognizable trope.
That's a really good and this is the interesting thing when you talk about film. The workaholic dad is a trope that happens a lot, and there's rarely the workaholic mom, because we, for whatever reason, and maybe this is a Western thing, maybe this is just a thing in general, people are forgiving of the workaholic dad, but the workaholic mom, they hate that person, hate like with a capital H, like where you don't want to forgive them. A mother who does.
Yeah, it's almost something that is unforgivable in a film, whereas the workaholic dad, they're like, well, he just needs to learn a life lesson.
Yes.
The workaholic mom, that's like, no.
It's weird, but that's 100% the case. We hate the workaholic mom because we hate her for not recognizing that she needs to be with her kids. But with the dad, we're like, oh well, he's gonna understand at the end, and we like seeing that where he sees.
And we always
oh
know that he is going to understand by the end of it, and he never really has to make this big pivotal choice, which I think is very tied to being a woman. Is that it's like you have choices that you have to make. Even within the realm of feminism, what kind of feminist are you going to be? Like, there's all these choices associated with being a woman, and a man never has that choice. It's always something that it's a fated learning curve. You know, something comes along outside of his control, like a zombie apocalypse, and he's fated to learn a lesson. It was always in there to begin with, like.
It's so simple with the dad character. All we need is a scene where he hugs the kid and we forgive him. It's crazy. Like, just hug your kid and then we're over it. We forgive you for all the years of neglect, right? Crazy.
Yeah, right.
Because so in this
sorry.
In this film, so then the next scene we see him, like, he has this thing where he talks about, what should I get for my daughter? He's trying to buy her a gift, and so he he asks someone, what are kids into these days? Kind of as a stereotypical thing, someone who's so disconnected. So he buys her a Wii. He comes home to see her, and he already bought her a Wii like months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was for Children's Day, which must be a South Korean thing. I've never heard the Children's Day before.
Yeah.
Do you guys have that in America? We don't have it.
We don't have it here in America either. It's called Christmas, I think.
Maybe because we're always like maybe we're just so spoiled in this way that every day is Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So you guys have Boxing Day, right?
Do you guys not have Boxing Day?
Oh no, we do not. We do not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we do not have Boxing Day.
Maybe it's something that's more from
UK.
England, because Australia is very much this kind of, we've taken like half of American culture, half of English culture, and it's like very much like then combined into the two. But yeah, Boxing Day is always a good day. It's usually full of lots of hangovers and leftover food, and seeing the food you didn't see the day before with a hangover. It's usually pretty good. It's my tradition is it's always like roasting hot on Boxing Day and Christmas Day in Australia. Boiling, so it's the aircon on, like cold. We're back when I was a drinker. Cold esky of beer next to your couch. Put on the cricket. That's very like Australian Boxing Day. And because you guys do you guys even play cricket? Have you ever played the game of cricket?
No, we don't play cricket. We play football, baseball. We play soccer until you're about 15, and football, baseball. Yeah, I mean that's mostly what we do. Basketball.
You guys play basketball.
Yeah, basketball. Yeah. Those are our sports. But no Boxing Day. Unfortunately, I always like more holidays. Anyway.
We do a lot. I think Western Australia, where I'm from, has like one of the highest number of public holidays in the world. Like, we're like any excuse.
Well,
take a day off.
Hey, I'll take any excuse to party and put some shrimp on the Barbie, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. That's exactly how we refer to it.
Yeah.
Kangaroos bouncing by in the distance.
Yeah. So
anyway, we have got Nauta's accident. Yeah, and then we find out like it's once again it's a trope, but it's so well acted. Particularly that little girl we should talk about is
she's amazing.
Holy moly, she is so good in this role.
Yeah.
She really can evoke emotion in an audience. Some little kids, they're just so adorable, and she's fantastic.
And we should bring up like there's a scene where after that he's watching this recording of her trying to do this sort of this, what I was about I don't know say. I didn't know what it was, but like she was singing this song Aloha Oe, and she just couldn't do it because of stage fright. And meanwhile she's like kind of guilt tripping him. I mean, I wouldn't really want to call it that because he's a dad. Like, you need to pay attention to your kid, and he's not, obviously. And she wants him to go with her to see her mom in Busan.
Yeah,
And he's like,
her mum.
yeah, she misses her money. And he's like, oh, I don't want to do it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe later, blah, blah, blah.
Work, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. He's the typical dad who, right, who doesn't pay attention to his kids. And so after seeing that, he decides, okay, I'm going to go with her to Busan. And so then they go onto the train to go to Busan. And meanwhile, again, another kind of trope of horror films, the adults don't see what's going on, but the children get it. And she keeps seeing like all these weird people and all this like kind of conflict. I think she sees something when they're in the car driving to the train station. And then when they're on the train, you know, she's the only one paying attention as literally civilization is collapsing.
Collapsing around them. I think like these opening scenes really set up some important thematics for the rest of the film. The one scene that really kind of, I didn't know this on my first watch, but watching it yesterday, I was like, oh, wow, that's beautiful, is all the ashes falling around them. And Suan, little girl, puts her hand out, and this piece of ash lands in her hand, and she closes it. And as she opens it up, it almost brings to mind like a connotation of like stigmata, because it's this like round circle of ash in the palm of her hand. And it straight away brings up what we are going to see as like a major theme of sacrifice, selfishness. And I thought it was beautifully done. Like, it's a really beautiful scene. And there's all these other things going on. There's emergency vehicles going past, and things are starting to, it almost reminded me a bit of a more serious take of the Shaun of the Dead scenes, where things are all going on around the character and he's not really noticing. Auto drive, which I think is a huge part of our society, is that we find ways to logically kind of discount things that are going on. You know, if I saw a bunch of vehicles, I probably wouldn't think twice about that either. I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever, like stop the car. You know, and there's all of that kind of stuff going on that adults have learned to ignore, but children are still very aware of.
They're attuned to it, for sure.
Yeah, they're attuned.
And she's totally attuned to, like, you know, like, hey, something's wrong. And of course the dad is still into the work. And like you said, most adults are just like adulting. They're like, hey, I got to get to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. Little do you know, the world is about to end, basically. So then they get on the train, and we basically get the short introduction to all the people that were going to be in the most of the story. Well, there's
this is so brilliantly done. Like, this is someone that is a master of his art. These scenes that are like snapshots of people, but we know so much. We feel like we know them straight away. Brilliant. There's like it's like this older couple of sisters, right? And they kind of have a little talk. There's this baseball team. One of them is one of the guys from Parasite. There's kind of like the typical rich businessman type. There's the attendants, and then later we kind of get introduced to this husband and wife, and the wife is pregnant. And that's the setup. And then as the train departs, there's this great scene where like there's this guy he's like looking back and forth, and then he looks one way, and then this woman runs onto the train, and then he doesn't notice, and then they're like, okay, time to take off. And this woman is like, and we get a brilliant bait and switch with that, which I thought was phenomenal. Where I think it's the richer middle-aged man is like, there's a weird person that's just got on board this train. I don't know what's going on with this weirdo. And of course we're thinking, oh, okay, he's noticed that there's this crazy woman that's about to turn into a zombie on board the train.
Yeah.
But we get revealed that he's terrified because there is a homeless person on the train. So it's a really great setup of who that character is. Very well done, while like pushing along the narrative as well.
Yes. What's really good too is that he has an interaction with who's the daughter character? What's her name? Suan.
Suan, yeah.
Yeah, and where she's like, oh hey, he says to her, oh hey, don't if you don't stay in school, you're gonna end up like him. And he says, oh my mom says, he's something like my mom says people say that are assholes or something like that. And again, like that's setting up this guy not a good guy, right?
He's not.
She immediately has a bad. She immediately has a bad take on him. Yeah.
And I find that, like, as now you're saying it, and we're talking about setting up characters within these first 20 minutes, it's actually a really great way of setting up the relationship between her mum and dad, why they're separated, who her mum is. And we never even meet this character, but we know that they're divorced and separated. And she's saying people that treat lower classes like crap are assholes, which kind of makes you think that this has been what has drawn this like divide and wedge between her mum and dad, is that it all comes down to this these different perceptions of class and money. And it's really, it's brilliant. These first 20 minutes should be shown in like every single filmmaker's university. Like, it's fantastic. Yeah,
the setup is really great. Right? You think about all the things, and even just that small interaction with that guy plays a huge part later on in the film. But how are we supposed to know it? Well, from the beginning, it's showing us this guy is in conflict with our protagonists. And so because we're in conflict, we should feel this person is not good, basically. Then the zombie girl, like one of the attendants meets with the zombie girl, and she's full on zombie mode.
She's going full zombie. And it's the first one we see. So it's the first one that we see this like proper, and this is at the 20-minute mark where like it's been like, cool, here are our characters, and then it's just like, pow. We're in. There are zombies. We're stuck on this train. Let's go. Like, it's very quick. Like, and now we're all in.
So, what'd you think of like the depiction of zombies in this film, like in comparison to other films that we've seen in the past? Like, again, this genre. I mean, The Walking Dead's been on air for like half my life. I feel like.
I know, but I feel like it's so weird now that it's still on, because I think for a lot of people, everyone kind of stopped watching it a few years ago. Yeah. And every now and then I'm like, oh, that's right, The Walking Dead is still on. I wonder what's happening there. And then you kind of like look it up and you're like, oh, yeah, it's still going. Like, oh, Michonne's still alive. That's cool. I think, but that overall, I thought the zombies, how they were done in this film, like it wasn't anything completely different from what we've seen in the past, but I think that kind of works. I don't think you need to completely reinvent the zombie wheel every time you do a zombie film. We've seen in the past when you try to make too many changes to a trope like that, it doesn't always work. I think the key would be like vampires, the Twilight saga, trying to turn them into something new. And for me, like, it just took out all of what made zombies brilliant, what made vampires brilliant. So it's kind of like a cross between like the 28 Days Later fast-moving zombies and the more traditional zombie as well. Like, they look exactly like how we picture a zombie to look, I guess. But yeah, they're not the brightest sun in the sky, so to speak. They can't figure out how to open doors, which works brilliant for this, because it means they can close the doors. But then you've got the same thing of the zombie thing of, but if they all pile up, how long is it going to take before they smash through the glass?
They break through.
They can't smell humans, which has become a real trope since particularly The Walking Dead. It's like, it's very much that zombies can smell human flesh, but they cannot smell humans. They can see them and hear them.
Yeah, and I really liked to. Yeah, they put these kind of limitations on them, but like you said, they are the 28 days later, the fast zombie type. I mean,
Yeah,
these
yeah, they
things.
can run.
Yeah. You need to, the what was it? The oh man, I forget the Zombieland rules. Number one is cardio. You got to have cardio in this world. In the Train
Yeah,
to Busan world, if you
yeah,
don't have your cardio on, you're dead. Like these things are
yeah,
fast.
yeah. Like they are fast. There's this one scene that's close to the first zombie where the camera's shot down quite low and it's the zombie kind of like over the top of the camera, and the camera and the
Yeah,
zombie are both moving so fast that you're like, okay, this is where we are at. This is a
yeah,
fast moving zombie film, and it's brilliantly shot, and it contributes to this feeling of there are high stakes here. You've got to move
yeah.
quick, think quick, move quick, and you've got to know, you've got to have your cardio in this world.
Yeah, I really like that shot. That's like I forget, they call it like the Sonori cam. It's when you attach a camera to a person, and so you get this like very intimate, but almost like distorting. Because when you see that, where the camera's moving,
shoot someone from down
yeah,
from underneath. This is something I actually learned from America's Next Top Model. Yeah, I like zombies and Tyra Banks. Is that if you shoot someone from underneath with like the light shining up, it automatically makes someone look a little strange and off kilter. I think the one I always think of as being like a real key to contributing to the genre is like in The Shining, where it's the camera underneath Jack Torrance's face as he's trying to get out of the fridge or the cupboard that he's been locked in by Wendy. And it's, all of a sudden people look weird when they're shot from that angle.
Well, it's very foreign. Like most shots people use in film is something that mimics how a human would look at a thing. But when you create an angle that is completely foreign to how a human could look, things feel distorted and you get a uneasy sense of the world. Because it's like a human being cannot look up at another human being like that. Like, it's just not.
I don't know. I'm 5'2". I spend a lot of time looking up at people like that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
The world's the way I see
it. Yeah. The world through my eyes. So continuing with the plot, so they this zombie infestation on the train is real, and like they quickly the woman attacks another attendant who turns into a zombie, who then attacks all of these baseball players in another compartment, and now this whole thing is like it's on, and there's a scene where
that's the other major thing about the zombies in this film is that they are quick turning zombies. They are not fantastic. It means we get to avoid this like, I've been bitten on my arm, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to hide it, and then over the course of 2 hours, I'm going to slowly turn into a zombie. Like, nah, that is gone. It is like that girl eats that conductor lady. Or whatever. What would you call her? Conductor? No, she's not a conductor.
She's an attendant.
Attendant, yeah. And straight away, she's a zombie, and straight away she attacks other people, and they're a zombie. Like, it is quick. Yeah,
it's quick. Yeah. And the train basically turns into a zombie horde almost immediately. I mean, it's within 3 or 4 minutes. A whole compartment is now zombies. And then we get the scene where, again, all this stuff is happening. So like the guy who's the husband, Sang Hwa, who's the husband of the pregnant wife, Seong Kyung, I think is her name. He's seeing people running by, but he doesn't really get it. Then the wife gets out of the bathroom, and then they see the wall of zombies, and then they run. Then there's this moment where Seok Woo like basically tries to lock the door on the two of them. And again, one thing, he was goaded on by this other guy, Joo-Suk, who, again, this guy, super self-interested. Now, we expect the dad to sort of be self-interested, but again, that's another thing that they set up, is that this guy, he keeps edging people on to like, it's all about us surviving, me, really. It's all about me surviving. And if other people die, I don't care. So that was another good setup, I think, scene. And so So yeah, so the
Absolutely, and it's almost like the way it's filmed with the middle-aged wealthy man. It's almost like he's the devil on our lead
totally.
character's shoulder, and it's almost like it's these like this image of his future. So it's very much like, if you continue down this path, this is the worst case scenario of who you are going to end up being.
For
and
sure.
then there's the working class man, which he is literally locking out through his choices, and it's through this, like this like really good working class man and his wife and pregnant wife, and it's this like man that's alone as well. So it's very much like, these are your options. Like, you can choose to be more down to earth and have a family and the promise of new life, which is, all represented by a pregnant woman, or you can be alone and be this wealthy, rich, selfish asshole.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what the working class man calls him, asshole.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire film, I think he calls him asshole. Yeah.
there's this really great thing. Like, he gives the working class guy gives him this speech in like a bathroom at one point. Great scene in the movie. I thought it was really well done.
Fantastic.
Where he kind of like gives him that pep talk, it's like that pep talk you need to like see the character change and move from good to bad.
And I think I actually wrote down the exact quote because I thought it was really quite beautiful. Yeah, he says to him, it's all about sacrifice, right? Talking about children. And that becomes, I think, like, if you could sum up the film just with like one sentence, that is it. It's all about sacrifice.
Yeah, that is definitely the theme. I think you're right, spot on with that. It's about sacrifice, and like I think again, like when you brought up with the ash that goes on her hand, and you see that stigmata. That's again, Korea is a very Christian country, so like that's kind of the symbolism that would resonate with people. Like,
absolutely.
It's about
I looked it up because I wasn't sure, and I was like, what? It's actually, South Korea has got a huge atheist population, which I didn't realize.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more atheists than Christians, but Christianity is still the majority religion. So the stigmata thing definitely fits into the connotation of the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, for sure. So meanwhile, Seok Woo, he like, now everyone knows, okay, the world is almost over. Like, this is really bad. He's on the phone with someone. I forget who exactly it was. Some person he has connections with. Like, he knows a lot of people because, he's connected and he's knows all these rich people and stuff. And so he's trying to connect someone with them at the next stop so that him and his daughter can get away, screw everyone else.
And of course, this becomes really interesting in the context of, I actually watched this for the first time at the beginning of the year, just as we were all put into quarantine ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was very real. Like, I was like, oh, this is a timely film to be watching as we're all in lockdown.
Totally.
And there is this real fear, and I'm going to say it now, like, contextually, this was written as the 2015 MERS outbreak was at its height in South Korea. And they had very stringent quarantine lockdown laws to try and stop the spread of MERS. And there is this, like, the dad has this fear of being quarantined at all. So that's when he's like trying to stay to his connections, like, how can I escape quarantine? And I think that is like so relevant now. Like, people, and they feel like they are above quarantine. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. So could you like your mic kind of cut out a little bit? Hopefully your connection will improve.
Oh,
no, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. Just like, if I could have you repeat what you said, because it's really important, I think. And hopefully this time it'll come across a little bit clearer. Because like, this is a really important point for us to probably discuss about the film. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that.
And I will apologise if there are any Australians watching. You know how awful our internet is. If you're not Australian, I was just telling Ibrahim, we have got one of the worst internets in the first world. Like, it is atrocious.
Yeah.
So, where did you sit here up to? 2015.
Yeah. So start with the 2015 and the cultural context that South Korea was in at the time, and how that sort of comes into what this film was about, really.
So I mean, there was a lot going on in the mid-10s in South Korea. One of the massive things that happened was the 2015 MERS outbreak, which filtered through very quickly through South Korea, and it led to immediate strict quarantine and strict lockdown laws of this being put into quarantine lockdown. And for me, it really spoke to the fact that the dad is terrified of being quarantined, which is something that was occurring in South Korea. One of the biggest criticisms from South Koreans was that the laws were too strict. Of course, this meant that the MERS outbreak was contained. And as we are seeing now, South Korea has had a very successful response to COVID as a result from dealing with MERS. But it's this thing of what we are seeing in the world now is sports people, celebrities that don't have to quarantine the same way that everyone else does. There are people that have, come into Australia, and instead of getting put into hotel lockdown, which is what most of Australia is doing at the moment, they are being, escorted off to their mansions to, because you're Nicole Kidman, you can do it in your mansion. You don't need to have lockdown. And same with sports people. And there's this, I think, what epidemics and pandemics really reveal is a class structure, and they really reveal who we are. It's a very almost quite existential view of the world. Like, what happens when you start stripping away the ability to use your money and power to avoid things. But so that's what I was saying. I hope that didn't cut out again.
No, that was good. Wasn't, so just as an aside, wasn't Tom Hanks and his wife were in Australia, right, when they got COVID?
They were. Yes, they were over on the East Coast. They were in, I think, Queensland. He was filming.
And they whisked him away somewhere, right?
I mean, he must have been one of the first few hundred in Australia to be diagnosed with COVID. But that's because there wasn't much testing as well. And once again, celebrities were getting tested.
Yes. And really high levels of treatment.
Test you.
Really
high levels of treatment.
Well, listen,
over here.
I think American can forgive a lot of Australians. We really like you guys, but if you guys let Tom Hanks die, I don't know if we could have ever forgiven you. I'm sorry.
I don't think Australia would have forgiven ourselves. I feel like killing off Tom Hanks would be end of. He's the most loved celebrity in the world, and comes to Australia and dies. Oh, Jesus. Wow.
Hey, listen, the bush is a really scary place. You got to be careful out there.
Well, I mean, wouldn't that be just the tip of the iceberg? We're Australia's famous for being this place of death and doom, spiders and snakes and all this crazy shark attacks, bushfires, heat waves, and the one thing that ends up killing Tom Hanks is a completely unpredictable pandemic.
It's not like he was out on some kind of trip and then they got lost and then they got attacked by some kind of animal. No, he just got a disease and died. No. Anyway.
It's definitely a film that if you haven't seen it at this point, you have to watch it before this pandemic is over, because it is much more terrifying during a pandemic.
Yeah. And I think it's really good that you brought up like the class conflict and like how everyone is sort of this is like the central theme of the zombie genre, right? Is that it reveals stuff about ourselves and not about the zombie is not the enemy. The zombie is just a thing. Just like in Jaws, the villain in Jaws is the freaking mayor. Okay. And Jaws has never been more relevant because in America, I can tell you, America is run by the mayor of Jaws. Like on every level, there is a mayor of Jaws at every level. There's a mayor, there's a governor, there's a president. Everywhere there's oh no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Just go out and it's gonna be over. It's already over. They're liars, and they downplay it, and it's insane. And people are like, I got attacked by a fucking shark, man. Are you crazy? No, there's no sharks. That was a baby shark. Yeah, it's crazy. So,
fantastic. But yeah, that is, I would say, the major theme of most zombie films is this thing about who are we at our core? You know, if you strip away everything that makes society work and function, what are we? So yeah, it is like, exactly. As I always say, you know, zombie films are the ultimate existential crisis because there is nothing else except you and the decisions you make.
Yeah.
And it reveals, often, not always, but it often reveals our relationship with money and capitalism, because in a world where everything is basically free, what does it mean to have money? You know, like if there was a zombie apocalypse and all of a sudden having a gold ring isn't worth much. It's kind of like in it's a strange film to be bringing in right now, but in Titanic, where at the very end the villain of Titanic is trying to pay his way onto a boat, and the guy that knows he's going to die is like, your money's no good anymore. Like money means nothing when you're up against other battles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I would say this film is very much about class, capitalism. You know, you've got all these different, through all the characters that we've got, you've almost got a representation of every single class level in society, from homeless man as, you know, the underclass. You've got the working class man with his wife. You've got the man that's on the rise, you know, so the rising class of the lead character. And then you've got the man that has made it, the middle-aged wealthy man.
Yeah.
So you've got like different representations of all the classes and how they interact, which was also a huge thing that was going on in South Korea between like 2014 to 2016. I've mentioned earlier one of the major allegories that I see going on, and whether it was consciously or subconsciously, as I was rewatching it, I kept noticing, I don't know if you noticed this, the use of yellow, the color yellow. Just constantly.
Sure,
you know, the little girl, she's got a yellow phone. And I just couldn't put my finger on what this yellow meant. So I started looking it up, and I was kind of trying to figure out what yellow means to South Korea, because it had to mean something for it to be repeated like that. And what I came across was the Yellow Ribbon Campaign, which came about after the Seawall ferry disaster. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole of looking into the history of that, and I was watching a few documentaries about it. If you don't know anything about it, for anyone watching, there is a fantastic documentary on Asian Boss on YouTube. Would highly recommend it. And to me, it just like changed this entire film. It's there's a ferry was leaving, and it mostly had high school kids. Which to me is all about that baseball team, you know, just it actually, like, it will now. I'm a bit of a crybaby. It quite moved me after seeing this documentary to see that there were all these teenagers and high school children that really did lose their life on this ferry. And it was because people just acquiesced to authority. People want to be told what to do. And there's so much of that going on in this film where it's, you know, everyone wants to acquiesce to this middle-aged wealthy man because of his just if we just listen to him, everything will be okay. And that's what happened in this real disaster, is that the only people that got away and managed to survive were the people that said, we're not going to listen to you. The ferry is sinking. We're getting the hell out of here. And yeah, it's really heartbreaking reading it. I think it was something like 300 high school students lost their lives. It was
oh my god.
And it led to the Yellow Ribbon campaign, which started out with people wearing yellow ribbons as a sign of like mourning and sorrow, but it quickly led into this bigger conversation about why we like listening to people in power, and did the president cover it up? It became a discussion about class and capitalism and communism and hang on, what I think I wrote down something. Oh yes, so one of the things then led into that was the quote that went with the Yellow Ribbon campaign roughly translates into either life before profit or people before money, which is exactly what this film is all about.
It definitely connects. It definitely connects. Yeah, especially because like it turned into holding people accountable, right? I mean, that it's like, oh, these people died, but why did they die? Why was this allowed to happen?
Yeah.
Why did people in power do this? Whose fault is it? Who are we going to hold accountable for allowing this to happen? Yeah, that's a really good connection that you made there. I wouldn't have thought about this otherwise. I think it's really good because the cultural context of these films is always important. And, you know, a country like they went through a lot in this time period, South Korea. And so all of that informs the art that people are producing. And, you know, in America in 2015, I forget what year Contagion came out. I saw it in the theater. I thought it was really well done. But now Contagion, people see it now, they think it's like looking into the future, right? Because for us, the context of a pandemic is just, or even an epidemic, because, you know, during the last decade, our responses had been good. So when there was, you know, or, you know, it was a flu, it wasn't as viral. And when there was, there was the thing from Africa, I forget what that was, which was really deadly, but we stomped that out really quickly. Yeah, Ebola was like Ebola.
Ebola. I watched a documentary about that a while ago, and it was like America were ready.
Because like again, like not to be super political, but the Obama administration understood that what happened now could happen, and if what happened now happened to Obama, it would have been over for him politically. It would have been the end of his administration, no matter what. So as a self-preservation tool, they had to be prepared for a pandemic. It is the destroyer of of a country if you can't of a government, at least, if you can't like actively and accurately respond, you're going to pay the price politically, and you should, because people will die. I mean, we can look at what all the different countries have done, and there's a pretty clear kind of thing with the countries that have done well and the countries that have done badly, like the types of administrations there are. And you know,
to know that I am a left-wing girl over here in Perth. Had, I think, one of the most successful campaigns against COVID in the world. We were back to normal months ago. We have been back to work. We've been, you know, bands are playing. We're back at pubs. We're back at bars. We have got a 91% approval rating on our premiere, which is like the most ridiculously high approval rating I have ever heard of. If you can think of any other one, like, I would be surprised. But King Mark McGowan is definitely what we call in the Labor Party, and he had a brilliant response. Yeah, really brilliant. So yeah, the smug smile of someone living in Perth that has I'm sure it won't seem so smug when we have a second wave next week. And I'm going to be like, oh, that smug girl.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, any like the American response, unbelievably horrible. And again, it comes down to the idea and kind of plays into this film, right? Like, what does the villain of this film, does he care about what happens to other people? Does he care about society collapsing around him? Does he think, oh, hey, maybe I should help other people because if they get zombified, even if I live, do I want to live in a world where everyone's a freaking zombie? And it just doesn't connect.
Yeah, and what's the point in living around you? Like, you need human beings need human beings. Like, we need each other just for company and basic support. And the rich man is definitely, I would say, the villain. He is the villain over the zombies.
Oh, the rich man, like, he is so evil. Like, and they do such a great job of like making him more and more and more evil. It's just like on top of all this. So again, what we've talked about so far is just him egging on the main character to cut off other people and let them die so that we just live. Later on in the film, so they get back on. So at some point they get back on the train. Like they get that to stop. All the soldiers are zombified, so that's not going to work. So they got to keep going. They keep going, and I forget.
Yeah, so that's basically like they get off the train, which gives us a nice little break in the narrative to get off the train for a moment. But then very quickly they need to get back on the train, and this is when we start seeing the real like, okay, you've got to get through each carriage because they get separated. So all the characters get separated. Like the husband gets separated from his pregnant wife, the dad gets separated from his daughter, and the teenage baseball star gets separated from the girl who is
the girlfriend.
Kind of girlfriend?
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because at the beginning it seems like they weren't like she was keen on him, but he wasn't keen on her. But they want to get back to each other.
You know, there is like the typical like boy who can't say his feelings kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like he liked her, but he's awkward and he can't say, "Oh yeah, I like you." He's like, "Oh," you know. Believe me, I've been there, so I understand that trope very well. But and again, we should bring up the working class guy who has the pregnant wife. He saves the main character. He saves his life. And he's like, hey, you know, you're welcome, asshole, right? And so again, it's like, you know, it's like the main thing of this film is like, are you going to sacrifice? Are you willing to try and help other people? That's what this is about.
So the homeless man comes over and throws a coat over one of the zombies so that the zombie gets confused. So it's this thing about the lower class and the working class are both willing to sacrifice for other people, and it's that plays a huge role in how this film is constructed.
But this rich guy, but it's really good that you brought up like that stuff with the ferry, where like the people in power told, or like the people in charge or whatever told people, oh, don't do this or don't do that, because there comes a point where once they fought through the middle of, and this is a great scene where they're fighting like with just like their hands and bats and whatever they can find. They're fighting through. Oh my God, I love that scene.
Like South Korea is like Australia, where so many zombie films are set in America, and in Australia we don't have guns. So just when we as Australians watch American zombie films and everyone's got guns, we have to think a little bit more creatively about what you would do, because we can't just like throw someone and pick up a gun. Like, I don't have any idea where to get a gun in Australia. There's like I've never seen a gun in real life.
I don't know. I think
I bet you've got 12 sitting behind you.
I don't know. You guys got that Mad Max mentality. I feel like you guys don't need a gun. You guys just go and find Mel Gibson and these other crazy guys and just like he'll fight them all off for you.
Yeah, we'll just go.
You'll do like what they do in this. Yeah, like what they do in this film. They just like, let's just wrap some stuff. I'll grab some, pitchfork and a knife, and I'll kill him myself. So
I think it's that beautiful creativity of how they get through everything.
Yeah,
and I think that is what makes this film is that creativity. And once again, tying back to the yellow. It's it's the teenage boy and the working class man. They wrap their arms entirely in the yellow tape, representing the Yellow Ribbon campaign. But I thought it was really interesting that the dad, he still has his suit jacket, which I like, and wraps his arm in his suit jacket and then partially wraps one arm in the yellow as this signifier that he's kind of on his way into what the Yellow Ribbon campaign represents of life before profit, but he's not completely there yet. He's not completely finished.
He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
It's almost exactly.
That's really brilliant.
There's lots of brilliant little creative ways that they find their way through. There's like the phone trick where he takes the poor working class man's phone and he's like, your ringtone and
this another
distracts the zombies. Fantastic scene where they're climbing through the luggage. Holy moly.
Yeah, it was really good.
That was proper.
What I like too is so then another layer for these zombies is that they're basically kind of blind, right? When it's dark, they can't see other people, and so that's the other big difference between these zombies and other zombie films is that at some point they go through under a bridge and it's dark, and the zombies just can't see them, and it's only they're attuned to sound, so if they hear something, they just attack it. So then they're able to figure out how to outsmart the zombie, and like when they're in the tunnel, they kind of, like you said with the phone, he lays the phone down, the sound comes up on the phone, the zombies attack the phone, and they're able to escape without having to fight through a bunch of zombies. So I really like that addition to another wrinkle and a difference in the how these zombies act from other zombies that we've seen in other films.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and so then at some point they do.
It's almost like mind over muscle in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Not you need to be clever to beat these zombies. You can't just go in with brute force. There needs to be a combination of things.
Yeah. So at some point they do get all the way through, and then on the other side, these other people have been away from the zombies, and then again this rich guy, his name Jung-Suk. Yeon is like, no, don't let them in. Don't let them in. They're terrible. They had to have been bitten. And this leads to this whole, decision of, are they going to let him in? Or are they not? And he like tries to, so there's one part.
When you've got the conductor's got his like arm and he's like muffling the teenage girl is awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
Particularly if you've ever been a female, there's this like overwhelming dread of being covered up like that where she can't scream, she can't move. It is horrific. But and they are basically saying like, we can't let them in, and he's taking the lead, and
and like you brought up, like you brought up with the thing with the ferry, the conductors and like the people in charge of this train, they go along with this rich guy. They do what he's saying. But why? Yeah. Why would they listen to him? Why should they listen? Basically, it's because he's the loudest.
Yeah, and he's wearing a suit. He appears to have money, and in this world, money equates to power. And no one's willing to listen to a teenage girl over this wealthy man.
Yeah.
Even though she is right. She's like, well, it's like we can't just leave people out to die. Yeah. Like, it's horrific. And I remember when I first watched this particular scene, at this moment in time was when in the COVID pandemic, I think this is mostly was around the world as well, but living in Western Australia, we've got Fremantle docks. So we have a lot of ships that come into dock in Fremantle. So we had like all those ships off our coast, and it was a real life thing where even people like myself are going, well, we can't just let them in, they're infected, but what do we do with them? What's this balance between protecting the people that aren't infected and being humane? So it was a real life issue, only with ships. I mean, maybe that's the sequel, is zombies on ships.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the sequel now, this happened like right where I lived. Was the first couple of cases of COVID in America was this cruise ship. There was a cruise ship and they were going to dock in Oakland, but they knew basically the whole ship got COVID. And of course, Trump was like, oh, I don't want them to dock. He didn't want them to dock because he didn't care about the case. He didn't care about the people. He didn't want there to be a bunch of cases coming into the country, which was insane. It was insane. But again, it's like how you have to keep track of all these people, right? In real life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it is an issue. And it's like, how do you humanely allow people to have freedom, but you protect other people from getting diseases that are going to be dangerous and kill them?
And like very much as we have seen in the real world, you can't rely on people just to quarantine themselves or do the right thing. There are always going to be people that are going to, you put them on 2 weeks, stay inside, and the next thing you know, they're down the pub.
Yeah.
That happened in Perth. We had like 3 cases. Right now, we've got like 3 cases of COVID in hotel quarantine. But we had this one bloke about 2 weeks ago, was let in from the East Coast, told to quarantine for 2 weeks. He broke out of his hotel because he wanted a beer. I mean, yes, the most Australian of all time. Like, the bloke just wanted a pint. Like, and we found in the local pub having beers on a Friday
That's
night.
amazing.
So the whole pub had to get quarantined.
That's amazing. And how selfish is that?
The whole pub had to close.
How selfish is that?
Like, because he needed a beer. I'm sure room service would have bought you a 6-pack. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's like if you're just a person who's following the law and you're at this pub and then like you see this guy, you don't think anything of him, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you remember that guy? So that guy had COVID, and now you have to quarantine. It's like, what? I was having a beer.
Now you can't go to work for 2 weeks. Yeah. Now you can't go to work for 2 weeks. Your kids can't go to school. Like, it's remember your beautiful gran. She probably might die next week.
Oh God,
yeah, mate.
Yeah.
Beer.
Yeah, it's so bad. I mean, in America, you can't, like, there are certain, this is something, you know, about like the Japanese and the Koreans and some of these other, even I think Germany did pretty well. Like, they actually are able to, as a society, do something for the collective good. In America, I don't know why, it's just anathema. I'm telling you, in America, it is anathema. Me do something for other people? No. I'm going to do the opposite because I am an individual. Okay.
Yeah. And that is like so much part of this tale is South Korea coming to terms with this thing of like sacrifice. And I saw this interview talking about the Yellow Ribbon campaign, and it was like older people saying like, we have given everything for this country. Like, they were brought up to believe that you do whatever you can for the good of the collective. And that's this whole film to me. Are we going into spoilers?
Yeah, let's get into spoilers now. Totally. We're in the spoiler section for sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So let them fly.
I want to talk about the two sisters, right? The older sisters.
Yes, let's talk about that. So that relates to so there was a scene where they try to stop everybody, and I think the working class dad, he ends up having to sacrifice himself, and so then the others are able to get in, and but then again, hoisted by the rich guy. The rich guy is telling them, no, get out, get out, get out, get out. They want them to all the people that were down on the other side of the train. He wants them to leave their compartment because he's afraid. He just wants to protect himself, but he's afraid that they're going to be infected and then they're going to turn and they're going to attack them. So then they all have to leave. And then, yeah, like you said, there comes the scene with the two older sisters. And yeah, so if you want to talk about that, you can go for it.
But firstly, so the working class man gets bit on the hand, and it's really cool mirroring, because then in the very next scene, we see the teenage girl bite the hand of the man that is subduing her, and it's like it's just this very cool hand bite. Very, very cool. Just one of those things that's a little fun little Easter egg that some directors throw in. But yeah, the two sisters, it took me a second watch to kind of figure out what was happening there, but one of them sacrifices herself as well to help the others get away. And then the other sister is sitting there kind of trying to figure out why her sister sacrificed herself, and then she opens the doors and basically lets the zombies in to eat everybody.
Yes.
And I wonder, it's insane. It's insane. It is, you're just the first watch, I was I don't understand why she did this. And I think a lot of people have had that reaction of but why? And I think it comes back to this thing. I saw this interview, and it was on the Asian Boss documentary, where a lot of the older people that are progressives in South Korea are we are at this point where we have given everything in our lives, and we're now looking at society and we don't like what we see. And I think that was basically literally what this older woman said. She's and I look at what I'm seeing and I'm disgusted by what the world is. And that's pretty much what she does. She's looking at these horrific things going on with humanity. She's looking at the way that we've become a society that's obsessed with money and power, and not taking responsibility and just looking up to someone else and saying, you tell me what to do. And she's realized that this whole way that she's lived her life it hasn't worked out. It's a disaster. She's well, I'm freaking done with it. And I think that's what she says. She says something like, this is bullshit, and just opens the door. Something like that, isn't it? She's this is shit.
You're right. Because they set it up where and she's even saying it in that moment, her sister was selfless. She's why are you so selfless? Why are you always doing that? And I guess she kind of it connected for her, because the one thing that scene made sense to me. That scene totally made sense, because she was fuck this. You guys are horrible and evil, and you killed my sister. Because you can tell that character, there's a little bit there, but she because the first thing, one of the things we get of her later, she says they're watching television and they see people were I guess breaking quarantine or breaking curfew or something, and she's oh, and back in the old days we would have re-educated you. And her sister's no, you can't say that.
That's right.
So yeah, her sister, the sister who lived, she's kind of hardcore.
Isn't it? She's we're gonna send them to the education camp.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's hardcore, but she has a real love for her sister, and she sees her sister as a fucking zombie, and that connects for her on an emotional level. And it's just because then it's it's not that you didn't let someone in it's whoever. It's that was my sister you didn't let in, and by doing that you got her killed, and how dare you do that? And so so I'm going to punish you and everyone else who didn't sacrifice by sacrificing myself to right the wrong of what you just did. So yeah, that scene made sense to me. It was a big F you to all these horrible people. And I like that scene. I thought it was good. I thought it made sense.
Well, I mean, it definitely took me that second watch. The first one, I was just whoa. I think it was so out of nowhere for me. I just had not seen it coming. But I probably should have picked up on it the first watch.
Yeah, what made sense to me was there's a moment where she sees her sister as a zombie. That kind of made it make sense to me.
Through that glass door, it's very powerful.
Yeah. That makes sense, especially when you're old and I don't know. I'm very I'm in my 30s, but I'm very aware of I don't know. I have a high awareness of the end of life cycle.
Well, the
You know,
life cycle is a huge part of this film as well,
yeah,
isn't it? 'Cause
yes,
you've also got, like,
yes,
saying we've got like people of different classes, but then you've got like every single level of life, from literally a pregnant woman, a child, a young couple, the teenagers. Like, it's literally everything.
yeah,
It is the cycle of life, and it's Suan's birthday, so it's literally a day
yeah,
of
yeah,
birth.
yeah. Hmm.
It's, you know, it's like, it's such an obvious like thing. It's a day of birth, but it really is about that cycle of life. Even with the two sisters, even with one of them is like, the first scene we see is she's unwrapping an egg with, you know, the
Yes.
egg being like representation of spring, new life, you know,
Hmm.
Easter, sacrifice, just all very tied into the cycle of life, afterlife. Fascinating, multifaceted film. Like, just so multifaceted.
Yeah.
Like, I need to probably give it a third
Yeah,
now.
it's there's so many good things, right? Like there's a lot that really works with this film. Yeah, so
Yeah,
continue.
it's certainly not just like a schlock zombie film. Like,
Yes, yes. It's an elevated zombie film, as it were. Anyway, so continuing with the plot. So at some point, so the woman lets them on. We think they all get killed. They're on the other part of the train, and then the train has to, like, they get to a point where their train is blocked and they can't keep going. So the conductor tells them, "Hey, we got to get on another train." He gets on another train. They all try to leave, and then we see that the villain is still alive, which I thought was brilliant.
That was a reveal to end all reveals. You're like, oh,
Yes.
like, you thought, but like, at the same time, we shouldn't have been surprised, because
Yeah.
we need to see this villain die. Like, we don't want him to be dead. This is going to be the enjoyable murder. Like,
Yeah. I mean, but that was like, oh fuck, this guy's still alive, and it's him and another guy. This was so brilliant. This was such a brilliant scene. It's him and another guy are in the bathroom, and they're waiting. And so then he peers out. The villain peers out, and he sees a still zombie there, and he tells the other guy, "Oh yeah, it's safe. Go ahead." And then the other guy opens the door. He pushes him into the zombie, and then the villain runs. It's so brilliant. He is so evil, because you want to see him die, right? Like,
you're ready at this point to see him like ripped apart.
yeah.
And it's not so bad at this point, because the guy has really like taken his side. So you're like, ugh, it's not, you know, it's obviously it's awful to see a human being getting eaten by zombies, but he's still not a great guy. It gets a whole lot worse when he comes across the teenagers.
Yeah. He just keeps doing horrible, and it's just like, please, oh my god, I want to see this death so bad, you know?
Yeah. So he pushes the sweet teenage girl into a zombie, and she gets eaten. This is where he really becomes evil to me. I'm like, this is unforgivable. This like young couple have been so sweet, so lovely. So she gets turned into a zombie, and the young boy stays with her, and so he gets turned into a zombie. And the numbers now are quickly dwindling as we head for this second train.
Yeah. So they're heading for the second train. I forget how it happened, but our main characters, the pregnant woman now, the dad and his daughter, they get was it like the train flipped or something?
Yeah, so the homeless man as well is there.
The homeless man,
and the train, like, I don't know how it happens, but the train ends up kind of on top of them, and it's this like super tense scene where the like all the zombies.
You know what it was? You know what it was? There was another train that was a runaway train that was full of zombies, comes in and like hits them. It's like out of nowhere, this runaway train hits them, and then they wake up and they're underneath this runaway train that's full of zombies, and the zombies are on the glass and they're about to break in and attack them. Yeah, very dramatic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go back to the sacrifice again, where the homeless man sacrifices himself to help the other three get away, and then all of a sudden there's only 4 of them left. Like, it's very quickly that all these people that we have grown to know and care about over 2 hours are just gone. Yeah.
And then so the villain at some point, the conductor of the first train gets onto another train and he gets it started, and then the villain gets on. Yeah, it's just the engine. It's just an engine of a train, like one of those freight trains that would carry, supplies or something. The villain gets onto that train, and he screws the conductor over again in some way. I forget how. Because he's
I
again.
can't remember.
Yeah, again, we just want to see this motherfucker die. Like he is the worst thing in the universe now.
He is awful. He is awful.
Yeah.
We're ready. Like, we're so ready. We want to see like one of those like, Walking Dead scenes where someone's like intestines are pulled out and like slowly put on, and someone's leg is getting bitten off, and we don't really get that scene though.
No, we don't. They pull another one on us. Because so then they're on this engine, and a wave of zombies gets onto the engine. And this was a really cool scene where they're all hanging on to the engine, and it's like
it's very like World War Z. Like, it is just like hundreds of zombies. Like I want to know how they filmed that actually, because it doesn't look like CGI.
I suspect what they did was those were not people. It was just something that looked like mannequins flung together, held together, but they wore human clothes while whatever was moving. And then one person was an actual person who's climbing up. That's what I suspect is what they did.
It's a very cool scene.
It's so great.
Like high budget cinematic, like zombies are really going. It's a great scene.
Yeah, and then really again, with the theme of sacrifice, the dad, he puts himself in danger and he just kicks down all of these zombies. He could have easily gotten his leg bitten, and then that would have been it. But yeah, he's like you said earlier, he was kind of half and half. Now he's fully understanding. He needs to sacrifice. He needs to help. He needs to put himself in danger for other people. And he does that. He's able to get the wave of zombies off the engine. But then in the fait accompli, our villain becomes a zombie. And they have to confront this zombie, and he's turning. It's crazy.
He is turning into a zombie, and it's this incredible thing where he's turning into a zombie, but it's the first time we see any real humanity in him. So
yes, it is.
It's this like real like complex, conflicting thing of he's becoming less human but more human.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's like crying and wants to see his mom, and you're like, oh god, we were expecting to see this like vicious death, and instead we're starting to feel a bit of empathy as the lead.
It's an interesting moment.
Looking upon his life, he's just heard his mother die on the phone.
Yes.
And so there's this like mirroring again where he's looking into what his future could have been. But yeah, and then so he turns into a zombie, and then the dad, the rich guy, start fighting.
Yeah, and again, the dad basically has to sacrifice himself to stop the zombie from attacking the pregnant woman or his daughter, and he sacrifices himself, and he gets bit, and he does throw the guy off, but he gets bit, and like you said, this is fast turning. He's going to turn like that. He has a few moments. And it's, really touching. He spends them with his daughter. He tells him, hey, you're going to have to pull the brake when you guys get to civilization, but I'm not going to be able to be with you. And he, goes off, and there's this shot of him in silhouette as he falls off the train. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
God, it was beautiful. Like, I don't think ever I have watched a zombie film that has made me well up with emotion like that. Like, I was genuinely very moved by these scenes where you've got that he's thinking back to the moment his daughter was born, and it's all the light around him, of that like purity, of the promise of this like beautiful little baby. And that silhouette. I mean, man, that silhouette. Whew.
Yeah. But, you know, what he didn't think about was, oh, am I going to make this trade? Oh, am I going to make this money? Oh, am I going to have this thing? Like, doesn't he drives like a BMW, right? Something like that. He has a nice car. None of it, because he gets it. None of that matters. What mattered was the relationship with it. The fact that he succeeded in protecting his child is what mattered, right?
Yeah,
and
in,
like
our final moments of life, we are not thinking about the latest deal we made at work. We're not thinking about our BMW. We are thinking about what we love. And I'd say for most of us, that is going to be the people that we love and care about.
Yeah, and the moments we've had with people over time. And so, it was really beautiful. It was really, that was a good moment where it sort of brought that character full circle about his change. And I thought that was really well done. And and then that sort of leads into the ending. So they get to Busan, and there's like a huge military sort of blockade, and they're walking through this tunnel. Very beautiful shot, going through this tunnel, very similar to Memories of Murder. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I haven't.
Oh, okay. That's another Bong Joon-ho film. So they're
I'll have to say it.
So they're going through this tunnel, and then the military people are like, "Oh, someone's approaching. We don't know if it's a zombie or not." And they tell him, "Oh, kill it. Just kill him." They're like, "Okay."
And
we know they're
going to be like Night of the Living Dead, where it's like, you've made it through all of this shit, and then the military just come and shoot you in the head. I definitely, that's how I felt. I was like, oh, this is going to be a Night of the Living Dead homage, and we're about to see a pregnant woman and a child get shot by the military. Like, I was prepared. I was very preparing for it. That was the ending. Thankfully.
And thankfully what we got was a sort of this emotional payoff. So at the beginning, the daughter talked about, like, you know, the dad was watching the daughter try to sing this Hawaiian song. She couldn't do it because and then later she says, "I couldn't do it because you weren't there." But then
for you, and I wanted to sing it for you. That is just like, oh, your heart is just torn. Just torn in half.
Yeah, and then they're about to shoot, and then she sings the song, and zombies can't sing, so she can't be a zombie, and so they don't shoot her. And it's like, it's just a perfect emotional connective ending to the film, that the sacrifice was worth it, and so he was able to save her by, you know, again, the sacrifice was worth it, and it's just such a beautiful ending, very emotionally satisfying.
On the level of, if he was with them, she wouldn't have been singing that song. So it's this, like, on so many levels, he has sacrificed for this little girl, and so then, like, all of the military come out and come to save them, and we get a happy ending, which is nice. It's nice to have a happy ending like that. Like, I really did not want to see them get shot. Like, I was so like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, please give these two a happy ending.
It's such a good emotionally satisfying ending, because it connects that stuff with the dad and the father-daughter relationship. It connects that and makes it and uses that as a way of saving them, and it makes us feel good about the whole experience. So. So that was Train to Busan. What a film! Like, a lot to talk about.
Well, so I was like, oh, we've been talking for a while, but it's because there was so much to talk about.
Sure.
Thank God we weren't talking about The Wailing. Hey, I mean, we'd still be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I need to watch that film, actually. That's on my list too. Korean films to watch. I haven't seen it.
I need to watch the second time, because it's 4 hours long, so I don't have the tolerance to watch something for like 4 hours. It's like, even with, you know, The Irishman or any kind of long film, I end up having to break it down. Particularly when you're into film and you're really engaging with something. I just do not watch a film that's longer than about 90 minutes without, like, having a break in the middle. So I think I need to watch The Wailing again. The Wailing is it's an epically long film, and it is epic, and it's confusing, and it's weird, it's beautiful, it's really confusing. Like
Wow.
you need to be really like,
Yeah.
my brow really has to furrow for that
Yeah.
one.
Maybe that'll be the next film we talk about if we ever want to talk about another. No, I don't know.
We've got a sequel that's just being released.
Yeah. Was it Peninsula or something? Yeah.
Yeah, Peninsula. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I guess what comes up now is like the eternal question, right? Of all that's always brought up in any zombie film is like, so Caitlin, what is your plan for the inevitable zombie apocalypse? What are you going to do to survive? How do you plan to make it?
See, I guess I've and as we were talking about, like no guns in Australia, but I think I'm zombie meat, like. Where I am, being in the city, I think your chances are lowered significantly. The other thing is though, that perhaps Perth, being the most isolated city in the world, will be safe. But I think the plan is now. My best friend Roxy will probably watch this at some point. She has friends that have a isolated farm down south of WA. I think we're going season 2 of The Walking Dead, and we're going to the farm, and we're just talking a lot. Like,
Yeah.
That's the plan. Like, I think I'm going to try and get out of Perth on a boat because we've got the Swan River. So I think I'm gonna escape on a boat down the river, get to the end, and then it's horses. So I'm gonna horse back to the farm.
Yeah.
And then Western Australia, like great outdoors.
Yeah.
They've got food, they grow their own food, veggies, and there's chickens for eggs and stuff. Like, I reckon we're cool. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if I would make it out here in the San Francisco area. I have a bad feeling. I have a bad feeling about what would happen.
Yeah,
but
you've got guns. Like, man, you guys have automatically got like a head up on any country that needs to use baseball bat tape to beat them with our hands. Like,
yeah. I think my only hope would be so I do live near a port, so hopefully I could get some kind of boat, get the hell out of here. That would be my hope. And if I could get to Europe, I
get on a boat.
Yeah, boat is like, boat's a pretty good bet. Hopefully, maybe there'll be a cruise liner that's like been abandoned because they're all bankrupt. Hop on one of those and try to get the hell out of here.
Yeah. See, because I always think that a ship is the best plan. Because then you could like find deserted islands as well. We've got a little island off the coast of WA that we actually used for quarantining COVID. It's a really small little island, but it's a holiday island, so it's got plenty of stuff going on. I reckon that'd be a good one. Off to a deserted island or farm in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, America has a lot of middle of nowhere, to be fair. To America.
Middle of nowhere. Yeah. That's a lot of middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's always fun to talk about. What would happen if we were in a zombie apocalypse?
Talking about like in this one where the animals turn into zombies, I don't know if I want to come face to face with a zombie boxing kangaroo.
Oh my God,
because you've seen them, the way they get like super muscly out in the country. That'd be more scary than the humans or the zombies.
That would be, that'd be crazy.
If we ever make a film together, this is the film that we're making. Zombie kangaroo in the country of Australia.
Or like a zombie dingo, right? Like, isn't that pretty scary?
Yeah, they'll eat your babies. Oh man.
That'd be really scary.
And it'd be like there's like the drop bear like meme where like Australia convinced the world that the koalas are actually terrifying and they're going to drop out of nowhere and like eat you.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Like the koala, it could be like that, like where it's just like all of the Australian wildlife. Turning. Just
turns on you. Yeah. That I mean, that's. Did you ever see there was a video of a guy? So he was out and his dog was attacked by a kangaroo, and he's trying to get the kangaroo away from his dog, and he punched the kangaroo in the face.
With this
Yeah.
kangaroo, I say. That's the thing. Like those big ones that are out in the middle of nowhere are scary. Like
Yeah.
they're scary. My friends and I pulled up to this farm I was talking about, and there was one that I reckon was about like 6'2", and I was like, "Oh my god!" You know, being a city girl, like, I'm like, "Oh my god, the kangaroo!" Jump out the car because I was like, "Look!" And she's like, "Don't do that! Like it like they're aggressive. That will punch you in the face." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, gotta lock the door.
Like you're trying to take a selfie with the kangaroo. Oh my god!
Yeah, get a photo of it. She's like, "Yeah, probably don't do that. That's a wild animal."
Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, we'll have to make I don't know what you would call it, but yeah, this would be a fun horror movie about some people just like they're out in the sticks in Australia, and then just the animals turn into zombies, and they start attacking people, and then people turn into zombies too. And there's no escape because
do that without but we could figure it out.
Well, the key is to not show the animal a lot, but like someone like
a big flash.
Yeah, or even like you don't have to show the animal a lot, right? Like a guy's out on a car, he's like sitting somewhere, and just the kangaroo comes in and bites him, and you just see the kangaroo's head, and he's just like fighting. He's trying to fight it or something. Like that'd be pretty scary.
If anyone steals this idea from us, you better watch out. I will send my kangaroo your way.
All right, cool. This has been very, very fun. We should definitely do this again. So, yeah.
This film
what I think of the film? Oh, I would say I'll give it like an 8.5. I definitely feel talking about it more. I feel stronger about it. It feels like this is trying to do something. It definitely, to me, this is better than a lot of zombie movies. It really. I'm not gonna say elevate or whatever, but I always felt like it created a real solid human connection in the zombie story. And it already started with a really great premise. And then on top of that, it created this emotional story that really like plays into that great idea, zombies on a train. And on top of that, you get this great emotional story. So I just thought it was really, really good. It's a great horror movie, in my opinion. How about you?
I agree. I would totally agree. And particularly the second time I watched it and the more you start seeing in it, the better it gets. So, I mean, I would have started with like an 8 to 8.5. Great film. After seeing it a second time, I would up it to like an 8.59. I loved it. I'd put it as, and this is going to be controversial, but I would say it's possibly my favorite zombie film of all time. I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah, I really kind of agree with you there. I feel like other than like the old zombie movies, the Night of the Living Dead kind of stuff, a lot of the genre, I don't know, it's kind of replaying a lot of the old tropes. There aren't a lot of them that really stand out to me. Like there are some that are good, but how many of them really stand out that do something above what there are other genres of horror that I think have created better content. The Haunted House or something, or the Person Possessed, or the Exorcism movies. I feel like those have created much better films than the zombie.
It's like high art. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just thinking
zombie films aren't necessarily. They haven't been high art, which is a shame because I think they have the potential to be really beautiful high art. And I think this film showcases that.
Exactly. This film really showcases that. And, if you get a good director and good writers in the genre, they can really, like this film, they can produce something good. It's just,
Yeah.
I really like this film a lot. Really, really liked it a lot. And it was great talking with you because it illuminated even more stuff about the film that I hadn't even ever thought of in terms of the social context.
I mean, had such a good time talking about it. Thank you so much for having me along. It has been super fun.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's always good to get two kindred spirits together and talk about something we're both interested in. Like I said, very illuminating. So how can people find you? Like what's your YouTube channel and other social networks or whatever even if there's professional work that you have that you want people to see?
Sure. I mean, definitely go check out my YouTube channel. It's Caitlin Bloody Mary. I haven't uploaded in a while because I recently wiped my entire hard drive by accident, but I will be uploading pretty soon. I'm working on a very long analysis of Midsummer. It's going to be like a mammoth analysis because I've seen that there's a lot of people that are doing like the 20-minute ones, but this is going to be like an hour long, every single thing about it, deep dive. I've got more Buffy the Vampire stuff coming up. I don't really use social media. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Facebook. But if you want to go over to my Instagram and watch me kind of post about outfit of the days and like the latest snap from my morning walk, it's also at Caitlin Bloody Mary. In terms of my professional work, watch this space. Obviously, I think like a lot of people's media work, it's been a bit pushed to the side due to COVID. So I would just say, YouTube and Instagram would be awesome.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. This has been a really great conversation, and hopefully we can talk again about some other film. And I definitely look forward to you talking about Midsummer for sure.
Thank you.
We'll have to talk about with that film. So I'm excited about it.
When I was like, I'm going to make this like the analysis that covers everything, I was just like, oh, my head still hurts. I've been working on it for like 3 months. Yeah. It's taking
I bet.
forever. Yeah. All right, so I'm looking forward to that edit.
Yeah. I know he talked a lot about that film was sort of about nationalism for him. Is that something that's sort of connected with you in terms of what you've wanted to analyze?
Oh, God, yeah. Mm-hmm. God, yeah. Yeah, there's, as soon as I watched it, I turned around to my friend that I was watching it with, and I'm like, is this like a race allegory? Like, they're all very white. They're all very, very white. And there's that sign that literally says something like, keep everyone, like, just like white power or something. Like, it's very much talking. Like, they've got like the white nationalist group poster that they drive under. Like, it's, which took me forever to translate because, like, how do you translate things like that? But yeah, vaguely translates to keep the country white, like Puritan stuff, and
yeah.
But there's just so much going on in that. Like, it's an insane film.
There is a lot, yeah. Yeah, for sure. You talk about someone who like is bringing art to the genre, right? Yeah, Ari Aster's films are just like
it's so like art. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. Well,
right, final question. Hereditary or Midsummer? What do you choose?
Oh, for me, I'm a Hereditary. I like it more. Hereditary is like a really fucked up movie for me though. Like I don't think I can watch that. I watched it like once, and like I'm someone who doesn't really get scared by films. There's probably in my life, I'd say there's like 3 or 4 films that legitimately scared me. And some of them have scared me not even for reasons of the film. It's just like the films was about something that scared me sort of outside of what the film was about, even though the film was kind of scary. So the film that scared me the most was Signs, but that was because when I was probably like 5 or 6, I was flipping channels on TV and I came across this thing about people being abducted by aliens. And for a long time, I was deathly afraid of alien abductions. Like that was my fear. And just aliens. I'm serious. And so I remember, so for instance, when Independence Day came out, so you know, like the scene where they got the alien and they're gonna like, I forget what the word is, but they're gonna like look at him or whatever. And that scene,
yeah, of course. It sounds like
that scene
or something. Cool.
That scene scared the shit out of me. like when I was a kid. Like I was literally in this theater, like clutching onto the seat, and then when the thing opened up, I jumped like 5 feet in the air. I was like, oh my god! The Aliens from Mars Attacks scared the shit out of me as a kid. Like whenever that commercial came on the television, I would change the channel. Like I was so afraid of aliens, and Signs was like basically my fear put into a film. Aliens show up for no reason. Matter of fact, the aliens show up and it doesn't even make sense why they're here because their weakness is water, but they're so desperate they're here to they're so desperate that they're here to just kill people, and they eat people, and we don't know why, and they're invisible, and they come at night. And the way that Shyamalan shot it, it's very in the Hitchcockian type of, you don't totally see what's going on, which makes it even scarier because I'm always when I get scared, I get really paranoid. So that movie scared the shit out of me. The other film that really kind of scared me was Annihilation, another alien movie. That movie is genuinely frightening and a very, very good horror movie. Yeah,
Aliens
but the other one,
like your weakness for fear.
Yes. But Hereditary scared me on a different level because seeing what the characters go through, seeing what happens to like the character at the end when he fucking jumped out the window, he's so desperate he jumped. That like I can't put myself into that frame of mind ever. I just can't do it. It's too much for me. And but I think
it is the trauma of grief.
Yeah, it's just so it's so much. So yeah, that film I think is really, really, really well done. I can't really handle it, but I do think that what he lays out in the script is so well done. I think it's a really well done script because he lays out all the stuff that's going to happen and all the clues are there. But then they play out in a way almost deterministically, and it's inevitable, and it's so, I don't know. There's just something about when you know that you're doomed and you can't get out of it. That's utterly frightening. It's a brilliant film. It's a brilliant film, 100% to me. So yeah, I think that's the better of the two, personally, my opinion.
Maybe Hereditary. Have you talked about Hereditary yet?
No, I haven't. No. Mm.
Maybe we should, because I've got the.
Are you gonna make me watch that film again? You're gonna make me watch a fucking movie again? Oh my god! If we talk about it, I'll watch that movie again.
I've got the opposite opinion.
Okay.
And I don't like. This is definitely my most controversial horror opinion of all time. I didn't rate Hereditary. And
yeah. No, I understand.
And in my personal life, no one's willing to get into this debate with me because they're all like, "But it's awesome." I'm like, "Wow." But maybe it would be nice to have a chat to someone that can talk film about why I didn't rate it.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'd love to talk that. Yeah, I think that would be a good conversation because there's a lot to talk. A lot of what I like about the film is I think that he, especially with the script, it's very technically proficient with all the stuff that he does. And you know, once you see the big picture of what he's building at the end, you're like, oh my god! And it just makes it just makes everything so much weightier that happens to the characters for me. But yeah, I think that'd be cool. I'd love to talk with it about you, and we can
talk about
have a conversation.
Like talk about what I didn't like and what you did like, and because I totally respect and understand why people love this film. Like, don't get me wrong, I totally understand. But I think there are a few things that I would like to be swayed. Like I'm open to having my mind changed about things that I might have missed along the way. So I think that could be an interesting one to be like gently told where I might be being too harsh.
Or like you're getting another perspective.
Like and I went into it after being told this is the greatest horror film of all time. This is the greatest horror film of all time. So I went into it with like feeling like I'm going to be harsh on this.
Yeah,
So I probably went in too harsh.
I think there's this weird kind of thing about Ari Aster. Well, people talk about his films. I don't think it's his fault, and I don't think he plays into it. But like, I don't know, they almost treat him like he's a savior of the horror film. And it's like, I don't agree with that. But I do think that he makes very good films, and he has a great vision and a great sort of authoritative, or like his authorship is very strong. You see it in his work. And I think that's his voice is good. But yeah, anyone who's like gonna set it up as, oh my God, it's the greatest film. No, it's not the greatest film of all time, but it is good. It's very good. So yeah, I mean,
well, maybe that's the next one. I'll force you to sit through it again.
If you want to talk about that film, I will watch it again, and we can talk about that film. Otherwise, I would not watch the film, probably, because, you know, I watched that once, and I was like, I saw this guy jump out a window, and I was like, I can understand why this human being tried to kill himself, and I don't know if I want to feel that again.
It's
like,
heavy.
Like, yeah, that is a very heavy emotion to put on someone. But, you know, that's what film's about, right? It's about us feeling that thing, you know? Like any time, any film that makes you feel something, anything, that's amazing thing to cherish. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for having me. I have had an absolute ball. I think we'll wrap it up. We've been talking for ages.
Yeah, we have. Been a great conversation, though, and I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
No worries.
Everyone, definitely check her channels out there, like her YouTube channel. Great content. Really, really, really good content.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good night.